So it's 2 hours. And carry on. We're live on telly now.
That's really interesting. It smells weird. So do you use them like all the time?
This is sizzling. Well, no, they're for your hair. I've discovered since.
Right.
I'll show you some from yesterday. We're out of camera for a minute. Don't worry. These are the. This is Joan.
Watch that their heads don't go too far to the top of the screen. The actual feed
This is
is
Nick's
cuts
grandson.
off about 80% of the screen, so try and keep it.
It's a lot worse for me, I can assure
Is it?
you. Yeah, it's pretty. It's a pretty extreme way of making portraits. When I said we're going to have a go at it, I didn't quite realise how intense it was going to be. So we'll just kick off. I mean, the reason I'm doing it. Oh, we started.
We started.
Is my son, when I said I'm doing this thing, my son said he was reading a book on Rodin and the kitchen table, and he said, "Jesus, did you realise that when Rodin made?" If you're talking, I'm not looking in your eyes. That's not because I'm not interested. It's because I'm going to go and walk around you and all that sort of stuff. Okay. When he did the Burghers of Calais, which are these big sculptures in Calais, these martyrs, he actually had to do portraits of a load of figures. And he decided to go to Calais himself and do portraits of people in Calais to see if there was a facial type or a kind of a physiognomy that he could sort of latch onto for these figures. So he went to Calais and did these portraits of blokes in a pub, that sort of thing.
Are you eating the wax?
Here you go, first one. Didn't you watch all the films yesterday?
No, sorry. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Everyone was like, you eating the wax?
Are you eating the wax? Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
Well, I need 3 hands. And it works out that you start dividing them down. I didn't realise it. All this stuff has become stuff I now become self-conscious about. Yeah, so anyway, he did these portraits and ended up with these incredible kind of faces on the burgers. And then Sim goes, you going to do something in Doncaster, aren't you? I said, yeah, I am. He said, why don't you go and do some portraits of people in Doncaster to see what happens? So I phoned Jo up. She goes, it's a great idea. Okay, why don't we live stream it as well? I thought, that's just 10 minutes after the conversation at lunch. We're now live streaming miners' portraits and people in
mental, isn't it?
By the end of the evening, it was up and being advertised, So it wasn't really thought through. And it is kind of extreme portraiture, really. Usually takes about sort of a month, really, to get a portrait sorted out. I mean, this scale I've never really done before. I've never copied a head.
Bigger.
Yeah, in clay, with calipers, measuring, and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's pretty nerve-wracking all round, really. But you're from, where are you from?
I was born in Conisbrough.
Conisbrough, where's that?
It's probably about 6 miles away, I think, from Doncaster, from where we are now.
Yeah. And you come from you're from a family of miners?
Yeah. So my dad was a miner, my granddad's, and then my great-granddad's, and then I found out my great-great-granddad's. And then we did some like family tree stuff, and my great-great-great-great-grandmother Jane was a female coal miner.
Great-great-great-grandmother
5 generations.
Jane?
Yeah,
was
5 generations.
Female coal miner?
Yeah, in Shropshire. So I'm like properly mining.
Bloody flipping heck.
Mining roots.
Really?
They run deep.
So have you got any notion of what a woman was, what period is that, 18th century? 1700s?
Yeah, 1750s.
And is that found in record research that you've been doing?
Yeah. She was on a marriage certificate. She marked in it. It said female miner, and then she marked her name with a cross because she wouldn't have been able to write, obviously.
Jesus.
Yeah. So tough woman. There's not much about the female coal miners in Shropshire, but if you look at some of the records, they would have had really tough lives. I mean, women would have had the babies down the pits. It's insane how.
Really?
Yeah, it's insane how tough they would have had to have been and how they lived. They would have like lived like slaves practically, underground for like most of the day, and the children then at 6 or 7 they would have had to have gone and worked doing small roles in the pits, and if they would have survived then they would have grown up and been miners. So yeah, it's crazy to think what sort of life she would have had in comparison to my life today.
Yeah. How can actually, I suppose, be a mother? If you've got a kid, you've had a kid down the mine.
Yeah, I think they used to just like strap them to them or something. I haven't done enough research to know, but I would love to have the opportunity to research what life would have been like for her.
So that culture, I mean, were there family-based groups that were working down below? Were they kind of...
I would imagine so. I mean, like I said, I've not done much research on it, but obviously if you look at the culture of mining and the sort of culture of like my father's generation and theirs, it was all about camaraderie and looking after each other and trying to make the environment that they worked in safer. And obviously you think about how the roots of that and how, people lived and what their daily lives were like and how dangerous it was, and how people just would have died. And there would have, when they worked together, obviously, and then people died, there would have been that mass mourning and that mass grief, collective grief. And that's when I was doing some more research on trying to understand, what this culture was that I was born into, but didn't exist anymore. I kind of realised that was one of the main things. That's what made it unique, because there were these times of like collective mass grief from the pit disasters that would have meant everybody would have been together in that moment and kind of wanting to help each other through the loss. And that's one of the fundamental things that the camaraderie to me was built on, that we don't get now, unless you look at something like Remembrance Day or that sort of thing. You can feel that camaraderie that was really at the heart of the community and why there were such special communities.
There's that sense, actually. I mean, someone said yesterday that it was really either mining or the military.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting, because when I was here on November the 11th, and I actually witnessed the cenotaph and the whole extraordinary ceremony here.
Yeah.
It's a powerful day, actually. I'm not a guy that goes to what do you call them? Remembrance Sundays.
Yeah. Well, we're a working class community, so a lot of a lot of people are in the army here. I realised that when I went to uni, because my mates, I went to Army Cadets in Mexborough, which is another ex-mining town where lots of people there either worked at the pit or went to the army. And a lot of my mates went off to the Iraq War when they were 18, and I went, and I went to uni. And I used to say, "Oh, aren't your mates out in Iraq right now?" I'm like, "Oh no, I don't know anybody." And I realised then that that's the community that I'm from.
I was amazed, because there was a guy who, an incredible bloke who had obviously lost his legs, and his face was in the what's the word? I look at faces, obviously. It was in that permanent kind of startled, horrified state. It was like his eyes were open and he was just looking as though he had just been hit by a bomb, really. And you talk about this respect for suffering. There were queues of people wanting to shake his hand. There were fathers wanting their son's photograph next to him. And he'd become this kind of totem, this kind of symbol of something.
I think you might be talking about Ben Parkinson, who's actually he's a war hero, and he's very much respected here. He held the Olympic torch in Doncaster. He is like our hero here, because he can't say exactly, but I think Ben Parkinson had the most wounds of any soldier coming out of Afghanistan. Am I a bit quiet?
No, just
sorry.
watching the
Right. Yeah, he's like a hero, absolutely. I've met him and I just felt like I was in the presence of like a saint or something, because it was like, it's incredible what he's been through.
Do you want to take your coat off? Because I need to see your neck. Is that all right?
My shirt's like a bit grubby.
Oh, okay. It's just
that's why I wanted to keep it on. It's got like, it pulled it out of the wash this morning, it's got all bits on it.
No worries. Oh dear. We'll end up with a collar around your neck. Well, it was obvious. He had an aura, put it that way.
Yeah, he does. And, he does. He's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I identified the... But there is that incredible respect for, I suppose you call it. I suppose that you get that in mining, don't you? That kind of respect for it. It's not a macho. Well, it is macho, isn't it, really?
It's like triumph over adversity.
Yeah.
That spirit, because if you are from, you've got to think Doncaster's in terms of like in Europe, it's like one of the poorest areas in the whole of Europe. Yeah, in thinking too, it's changing, but in 2014, I think it was in South Yorkshire was deemed one of the poorest regions in Europe. Yeah, and obviously Doncaster's. Yeah. So you've got to think everybody's kind of, it's about trying to overcome adversity because the struggle's real, I guess.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of that must come from the closure of whole communities, really.
Yeah.
Pits.
Yeah. And I think that's what my work was about as an artist. As an artist, was trying to understand what had actually happened, how, you know, my dad losing his job effectively had affected everything in my childhood and upbringing and the community that I grew up in, and then obviously seeing that it wasn't just my community, that it was 100,000 miners were on strike during 1984, so it's like all those families were affected, and that's a massive amount of people, and then obviously the knock-on effect of the other industries which closed because of mining. So it made me see it as such a huge thing around British culture. It's not just Doncaster, it's the whole country. So it was like I felt like I really needed to understand what had happened. And actually tell that story to younger generation, because younger generations haven't got a clue. I didn't have a clue. And it was only through studying art, really, that I actually delved into it. And it was at Doncaster College, when I was doing my art foundation, where the lecturers, we did a project on identity and background. So I was like, I've always been called a miner strike baby. Like, my dad and his mates always called me their miner strike baby. I'm going to look at that. So I started looking into it and what it meant, and really, like, go into research and look at the pit and where it was, even because for our generation we didn't see all this, you know, this huge architectural structures and this massive winding gear that you'd look up to, like that sense of pride of seeing this huge structure. It'd be like, well, there's a wasteland over there. I mean, we used to call the Death Valley, which I think is really ironic because that was one of the biggest industrial sites in Europe at its heyday. And, you know, thousands of people were employed there. And I remember my dad taking me to just, I don't know why, but we used to go out for a day and he'd drive around, like, different mining areas to see what had happened to the sites. Right. And this site, Manvers, was just like this massive, like, quagmire. It was just like a grey wasteland. So, yeah, like, people grew up at that time when I was, like, researching and looking back. We were calling that area the Death Valley, but not really understanding fully of what had died there. Yeah. And
what period? How quickly were these mine heads removed?
Really quickly. I mean, I found some photography when I was doing my research of a local historian who documented from, I think it would have been 1984. No, it would have been 1986 when my dad's pit shut, and then by kind of like 1991, it had completely gone. Completely gone. And you could pass it now and you'd never know that there was any industrial site there at all. I mean, it's pretty shocking when you think, like, at that site in particular, at least 400 men and boys died at that site. And there's no marking. I think the community are, like, actually trying to create a memorial on the site so people do know. But, I mean, I was doing a lot of research on it and I found that cyclists and people walking past the site were just seeing the shaft entrance marker and thinking it was, like, I don't know, like a milestone telling you how far it is to Doncaster, and that's actually where the men would have gone down for down the pit for over 100 years. So that whole, I don't know, the whole way that it's been erased. It's incredible.
Do you think that was actually someone?
Oh yeah, of course it was. Absolutely.
So we're going to remove all evidence.
Yeah. Well, it's only now that, you know, it's same as Orgreave inquiry, isn't it? You know, it's all the same. It's all the same. It's just sweeping it under the carpet, pretending it never happened, and then my generation, the younger generation, don't even know they're part of this amazing history. And this is the thing for me. It's like understanding this gave me a cultural identity, and I think a lot of young people now from working class communities don't have a cultural identity. So then you get them doing things like getting involved in, like we had the EDL in Doncaster, you know.
What's that?
English Democratic League. So fascist.
Sorry, I was on another level. That's not a place.
Sorry.
No,
sorry.
go on.
Sorry.
Carry on.
It's obviously I think because people haven't got a cultural identity anymore, that's when it becomes dangerous, because people start attaching to, you know, wanting to feel a sense of pride. That's why people, you know, the patriotism and all that around the English Democratic League, and I think that's what they're called, I'm not sure, EDL. Yeah. You know, it's that sense of pride and that sense of belonging to a community. And that's, you know, because the culture has been just totally taken away from people. They don't know the part of this amazing history that spans back hundreds and hundreds of years. I mean, I was thinking about it this morning, and it's like, you know, if we'd not had the Industrial Revolution, if we'd not had these, you know, all these communities mining for coal, then we wouldn't have, you know, it's the technology, we wouldn't be here we are now with technology. It's just incredible that, but, you know, it's just, no one really sees it like that. I don't really get it.
Do you think so?
Yeah.
It's
You're not really taught about it at school. Kids are not taught about it. I mean, you've worked with XP, which is a local school now. They teach the kids about mining, about the mining history, and the kids feel a sense of pride about it. And I think what I learned to be an activist from listening to the stories of the miners and finding out what they did, because they didn't just do the job. They made those, like I said, they innovated, making the working conditions better, safer. They were engineers, you know. They designed new technology, in the trade union movement, schools, hospitals.
Yeah. This is something I had no idea about.
Road networks.
That all that kind of
the welfare state, everything. Like, obviously, it's off the back of other industries as well, But
even here, I was talking to the guys from the NUM and stuff, and they were saying the NUM would have provided, sports centres, social clubs, and a whole kind of infrastructure in these villages and towns. That, I mean, I don't come from it, but I was really kind of taken aback by the fact that the organisation around these things was that big, that the support networks, whatever you want to call them, were so extensive that whole towns were really built and sort of nourished by the industry, and the union movement as well.
Yeah, it's incredible, because when you look on a map, so you look at that point that I explained where the shaft entrance markers are now, so that's like a stone where it would mark where the pit was sank and the miners would have worked down there. And you look at everything around it. You look at the canal networks, you look at the housing estates, you look at the roads, the schools. Everything was because of that point and because of the mining.
It's an incredible kind of image, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's like when they talk about it being the heart of the community. It was. And I often think, well, you know, how do you get that collectivism back in society? Because we live in a very individualistic led society, and I'm very much part of that. You know, I run my own business. I don't, you know, I might be, you know, a proper Thatcher's baby, not a strike baby really, in some senses, even though I'm really not. But yeah, it's, you know, it's individual led society, and how do you get that collectivism back? And it was fundamentally because everybody worked together. Everyone worked together in a similar job,
and I suppose in a sense,
under the same kind of thing.
I suppose in a sense you can't fabricate it. I mean, that was a natural, you know, it was the kind of social milieu, or whatever you want to call it, the social kind of cohesion came out of a job that had to be done. You couldn't a council can't recreate that. You know, you can't suddenly say, okay, let's all go here. If you all come to this and that and the other and you do that, it just won't happen, will it?
No, it was like really a unique thing, really, but a really special thing. And I do love all the ex-miners, like I do get sad when I hear, you know, of any of them. Obviously they're older. Like I worked with a man that I was doing some of my artwork and projects and stuff, who worked with my granddad, and that was amazing to meet him and his generation. And they just cared about each other. They just gave a shit. Sorry, I don't know how to swear. Just really.
We've had plenty of it.
Right. Okay. Cool. That's good.
Don't search for it though.
They just gave a shit, and I just think, for me, like looking into it all and researching it, I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be someone who gives a shit, because people don't. No, I don't think as much. It's more driven by materialism. Than looking out for your neighbour.
So how are you finding? What's your modus operandi? What are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, are you active in this sense, in this quest?
Yeah, I do feel like I'm an artist, but I'm an activist as well. So I want to see change happen in the world. I know some people say artists shouldn't take on that role, but I think because of the culture that I'm from, it's like and the place that I'm from, I feel an urgency to sort of make things better, like in whatever way I can. So, or whatever I feel I need to. So, when I was 25, and I've done a lot of like work and research and dedicated a lot to understanding what it meant to be a minor strike baby. I kind of felt like I just couldn't do it anymore. And then I realised I was like, I should have been a nurse, because all I really want to do is help people, and I want to help people feel differently about, you know, the place that they're from and the culture, and that they're not worthless because they're from a place like Doncaster, because that's how a lot of people feel. A lot of young people feel like, they're like, oh, I'm from Donny, it's shit, like I want to move, I want to get out. That's very much how I felt. I felt like I needed to escape, because there's nothing here for me. It's apathetic. That was one of the things that I felt about my generation in comparison to my parents' generation, who were like socialist activists marching under banners. I mean, my mum took me to rallies in London as a baby. They were politically activists. My mum said it the other day, actually. She said it was really funny because the trains were on strike and she was supposed to be going to Devon, and a lot of people had been really upset about the trains being on strike. And my mum rang them and said, listen, it doesn't matter, I'm a miner's wife and a banner-waving socialist. I don't care if you're on strike. It's fine by me.
Really? She phoned you up?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's it, isn't it? It's
wow.
like kind of, seeing the bigger picture, really.
Yeah.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Well, as you say, that kind of temporary inconvenience causes a lot, you know, I suppose it causes a lot of damage to kind of social...
Yeah.
What's the word? Social infrastructures and, you know, the quality of living and the rights of the worker. People wanting to catch a train and getting angry at people striking who are basically trying to keep their standard of living up. It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
So I'm concentrating, I'm rambling.
collectivism.
Trying to concentrate as well as make political comments. It's a dangerous thing to do.
I know. It's a very political subject matter.
It is. We've made it very well. It is. It's been very political.
You can't really escape
Yeah.
that.
So when you say you're an artist, you've got a studio in Doncaster, or?
Yeah, it's a studio, but we I co-create work, really. So we co-create a magazine from the space, and then work and collaborate on different projects. So it could
right.
be,
So this is
like
this magazine.
Yeah.
So what's the magazine?
Well, I moved back to Doncaster 7 years ago now, nearly 8 actually.
From where?
I was living in London. I went down to study in London, and then I worked in London and collaborated on projects, and worked down there really for a bit, and then felt like stagnant because it was just so hard to afford to live down there and be creative. I just couldn't really do it.
I had the same problem.
Yeah, so I felt like I've moved back to Doncaster a bit, and I had some projects I think to get involved in that I wanted to get involved in here, but I didn't really want to stay in Doncaster. I still had a really negative opinion of Doncaster, even though I felt like I understood Doncaster, and I was proud. I felt proud to be from Doncaster, and I felt proud of my mining roots and everything. I didn't think I'd stay here, but then I met Warren Draper, and we've been collaborating together as artists for 8 years now.
Oh.
And we co-created Doncapolitan, which is an arts and culture magazine. Because what we found was, and what I found when I did move back to Doncaster, I just kept meeting really interesting people all the time. And the difference between here and London is that no one's telling their stories, no one's documenting them and making a platform for their work. So we wanted to do that really.
I've seen this magazine. Sorry, my ignorance is quite handy because you have to tell me what it's all about now. But I've seen it in my hotel, Doncapolitan.
Which hotel?
It was the Regent.
Oh yeah.
Bit of a plug.
Yeah,
it's great. Really
like
nice looking production.
Thank you. We knew that we wanted to create something with really high production values because it's actually harder to make people believe in Doncaster than it is in other places, because when we started the magazine, everyone said, oh, that'll never work, there's no art and culture in Doncaster. And it's awful, because it's almost like people have been brainwashed by the national media, and the media only likes to tell one kind of story about Doncaster, that it is, poor, apathetic, northern, you know, they just like to run stories on all the bad stuff. They don't really like to celebrate any of the good stuff. So we set out on a bit of a mission to kind of be this like propaganda machine of just telling positive stories. So
it's quite edgy as well. I mean, there was sort of stories about. I think it was in my one that was about. Was it crack or
Spice?
Spice, yeah.
Yeah, that was an amazing piece actually to do.
The photography was fantastic.
Yeah, we kind of all make that in-house as well.
Really? So that's the kind of photographers from the area, and really.
Yeah.
Well done,
Got a lot of talent. Yeah. It's just ignored because, like I said, they're just.
Well, not now.
Yeah, well, we're trying. We're trying. It's hard.
What sort of
punching?
What sort of what's the ambition of the magazine? I mean, where's it going to go?
We don't know really, but we've looked at, you know, a lot of magazines start out as local magazines and then become much bigger from it. So it's just depending on where we want to take it really.
Is it hard work?
It is really hard work. Yeah, it is.
And how is it, a monthly or a quarterly or?
We do 6 a year now because we do a lot of other projects as well.
Yeah.
We've got an urban farm in Bentley, which is the next mining town. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because we're like CSL's more of a movement than anything else really, because we wanted to change the way people live. Not in a like, oh, it sounded really bad saying that. That sounded awful. We're not trying to be like, I don't know. We want to change people.
Well, you care about.
We don't. We just know that if you grow up in this town, it can be shit. You can have a shit life. I mean, you know, and we want to show that actually you can live in this town and have a good life. And it's not about money and buying stuff. It's about
state of mind.
Yeah, being in a community that cares about each other, valuing things that are important, having good food, hence why we've got the farm. Wow. We're not growing much down there at the minute, but we do like a weekly organic veg bag.
Really?
So, yeah. It sounds nuts now when we like talk about this, it sounds nuts what we're doing, but
not at all.
Yeah, we do that as well, so we want to show that you can buy, because places like Bentley, which is the next mining town, they're actually like food deserts. I mean, you could, it's easier to get a takeaway and a kebab than it is to like, you know, buy fresh food, and yet in Doncaster we've got a unique microclimate where we could be growing a lot more food.
Have you?
Yeah.
How come?
It's just, I don't know the details of that actually, really, but yeah, it's a unique, I think it's something to do with where we sit and the
topography and the...
Yeah, I don't know about much about it, but I know...
it's real.
Yeah, it's real. Ask my business partner Warren, because he can tell you more about that stuff.
Wow.
But yeah.
So is that related to Doncapolitan? I mean, is that all part of the same? When you say, is it what? So the movement is a kind of a Doncapolitan movement, as it were.
I don't know. We like Doncapolitan is like a thing that we do, and Bentley Urban Farm is the thing that we do, and then we do other stuff as well. I work in a hospice doing art therapy now.
Really?
Yeah, which is really good, because when I've done all this work and all this stuff, and I ran a campaign basically. Called Pin the Pits, which was about marking those sites on Ordnance Survey maps, like the pit sites, and that like blew up, and it was like all over like newspaper, and just loads of people were just all over the country were like, this is amazing, and I really felt like I wanted to make it happen for all the ex-miners, and that it'd be a memorial for them. That was my memorial for them, to try and make this campaign, get Ordnance Survey to change the way they mark the maps to include these sites. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I studied a lot of mining memorials during that time, and I felt like that was the way that I wanted to respond to it creatively.
And did you succeed?
I went to Ordnance Survey. I had like an early days motion in Parliament. I spoke in Parliament. Yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. Like loads, like I met Tony Benn and like Billy Bragg and like all the kind of big political figures on the left.
God.
It was really, really amazing. But I think like I felt in my heart I wanted to make it happen so much, and I wanted like kids to be able to open an Ordnance Survey map and see like something special that referenced this, 100-year history that is ignored and erased. It's literally been erased. So I did that, and then it's like Ordnance Survey were kind of like, no, we won't do it, and I just and I had to kind of just stop basically.
Oh, so it didn't happen?
No.
Sugar.
I had to stop. I couldn't spend the rest of my life campaigning for it. And obviously in 2010, that's when, you know, austerity started, everything changed. And I think I was running a campaign then that seemed like really unjust and really important. And I do still believe in it. Like, I do still believe that it was a good cause, and the people that it brought together via doing the campaign was amazing. But obviously you've got such bigger issues now that people are campaigning for. It seems like a different world when you look back.
And also maybe it's just the time as well, and like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, it's like it might come.
Yeah, if Jeremy Corbyn gets in.
Yeah. Amazing.
So I did that. But then when I got to that age, I was just like, why have I done all this? Like, I just want to help people. I should have been a nurse. I was like, I should have been a nurse.
Right.
And then I randomly ended up working in palliative care, doing art therapy. And I've been doing that for the last 5 years in a hospice, which has been amazing. I just love it.
Jesus. So, and what are you doing? I mean, how is that? On the ground?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? I mean, you're working
art
with.
therapy.
Yes. What are you working with people that are obviously terminally ill?
Yeah.
And you shake their hands, you sit down, and you say, "How do you feel about this?" Or
no, it's more like building just relationships with people and encourage them to create in whatever way they want to. So It might not be about necessarily their illness, but it might be about making something for a loved one, or learning to paint because you've never painted before, never had the chance to, or it might be writing letters, or looking at poetry, or
sounds amazing.
It is. It's awesome. I feel like blessed for that. So yeah.
You've been doing that for how long?
5 years now. I'm not a qualified art therapist because I can't afford to do the course. And so obviously you get like, it's kind of an elitist thing really to do it, because it costs such a lot of money. They've introduced a loan now, but even still, I'm considering shaving my head and doing a fundraiser to raise the money to do it.
God. And how would that change things if you got it?
It just means that I'd be more qualified. I'd have the academic theory behind me, which I haven't.
Right.
I've got practical experience because I've been doing it, if that makes sense. But I'd just love to be able to have that like more academic background and work with other people as well. I'd love to work with people coming out of recovery, substance misusers. I'd really like to do that, because the piece you talked about, the one about Spice, that's actually Earl, who's in recovery, and he came to us at Doncaster and was like, we need to do a story on Spice, it's terrible. And I see the effects of it in our community. It's like horrendous. It's really, really sad what is destroying people's lives. It's awful. And Earl said, we need to do a piece on that. And I said, well, you know this subject matter more than any profession. Well, obviously there's professionals that are working, as detox nurses and working with people in recovery, but you're on the front line of that issue. Why don't you write it? And he's never wrote it for anything before for a magazine, but we always try and push citizen journalism, so it's more of an authentic voice. So when you read it, like, it really comes across, it's a personal journey, and it's an issue that's massive at the moment, and there's probably people writing policy on it and stuff at the moment, and he's right at the front of that issue. So it was amazing actually to do that piece. And he was like, this has been amazing. You have no idea how much it's helped me. Like, I've been able to write this piece, giving someone the chance to go through a creative process to articulate, the world that they're seeing around them, rather than them being interviewed by somebody. It's like him being able to share his. Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Quite a heavy one, that though. I had to edit quite a lot out of it because there's much more heavier stuff in it that we couldn't publish.
Amazing. Wow, you're busy.
Yeah.
Jesus. So when you did your what was your thesis? It was a thesis you did, or your research on mining?
Yeah, I did. It's got a really long title. I think it was called The Art of Social Change, but focused on the memorials in mining communities. Because in order to create my own one, I was like, I'm a miners' strike baby, and I did all this work at art college here in Doncaster, and I was like, I really want to create something like from my generation to show that we've not forgotten, kind of thing, or that we're still here and we still remember. So then I started on that journey. I started documenting them and visiting all the sites and looking at the different ways artists had created memorials or public artworks. Obviously in the 90s there was a big public artwork boom, and a lot of artworks were commissioned during that time, so I looked at them and documented them, and some that were successful, some that weren't successful.
Was there a criteria for success in your mind? Was it down to your taste or down to...
I think the quality of the artist delivering the work, and a real deep understanding of the community and culture and people, I think. So that takes time, and that takes research, and that takes all that.
And how far did you travel looking at... Did you... I mean, obviously you visited tons of... There is a lot.
Yeah.
Mining memoria.
Yeah, I did look at a lot, and then I looked at it kind of... You know, in public art, you know Sierra's Tilted Arc? I sort of like looked at examples like that in public artworks and how they can be, you know, because that was like a disaster, wasn't it? Even though I really like his work. So I looked at...
You talk about the one that straddled across New York pavement, blocking everybody off.
It's like artists playing God, isn't it? Like, you will go where I tell you.
You will obstruct the boulevard and you will call it art.
Yeah. So I looked at his stuff, and then I looked at... Because it was great, because I actually found where my works sat in terms of... Because I studied fine art, so I actually... and there was a lot being published then about, like, connective aesthetics, where it's more about, like... it's a creative process, but it's about connecting people. It's like a weaving, but with people, memories, stories. Yeah, so I started looking at that and talked about that a lot in it. And things like Jeremy Della's Orgreave, and looked at different opinions on that, and, you know, wrote to miners that had attended it and talked to art critics that had attended it. And it was interesting because the miners that went to it, like, loved it and thought it was brilliant, and the art critic was like found it patronising and odd, and said that he didn't like the experience of it all, being there and having like a Cole Not Dole badge slapped on him, and but it's an amazing piece. It's an amazing piece of work.
It's one of those iconic landmark pieces, isn't it? By the way, Battle of Orgreave was a reenactment of the battle. With full members of the mining community who were actually in the original reenacting the strike. And
people who do reenactment, so the police, I think, were played by people that do, like, reenactment, like, so the guys that do, like...
From the English Civil War.
Which is I love that juxtaposition with his work. It's like when he did, like, Acid Brass, and he got a brass band playing Acid House. It's just such a great... I did meet him, actually, Jeremy Della, I used to write to him every so often, because when I told him about my Pin the Pits campaign, and he actually said, shit, I wish I'd thought of that.
Oh, really?
Brilliant. Which was pretty amazing.
Fantastic. No, he's great. Brilliant guy. So, if you were doing a memorial of mining for Doncaster, where would you go with it?
I did. Mine was Pin the Pits campaign.
Oh, right, well, that's,
So, mine didn't work out.
Because it's been very, very interesting, because I have been going around and doing talks and meeting the community now for about 6 months. Which is about... I came really thinking, I've got to get a sculpture out of this, it'd be great. I'll stick it out there and I'll go back down there and get on with my life, you know. My God, it's been incredible, you know. I suppose in a sense, I don't want to, you were talking very honestly about your community. I suppose my community is a very rural one. It's farming, and it's similar. We had, I suppose, my family were generations of farmers that have gone back 10 miles from where I live to the 1600s, you know. And,
whereabouts are you from?
Suffolk, in East Anglia.
Oh, yeah.
On the
I've
East
spent
Coast.
quite a bit in Ipswich. In Ipswich.
Oh, near there,
Really? Yeah, my ex-boyfriend lived there actually.
Oh.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time down there.
God blimey.
But yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really beautiful, and
But it's not, you know, I suppose something you hear on the telly or whatever, in the media, the sense of community lost this, and the community in the community. I thought, actually, you know, we obviously got friendships in villages and stuff and like malarkey, but there's no, well, you talk about it now, I suppose, here, that there's no real sense of, like, you know, collective kind of family kind of identity where I come from. So when I walked up here, when I came up here and, you know, I had my sort of interviews and met people and stuff, and I sort of said, well, I must meet the community, and it was all very important. I thought, well, actually, you know, community, you know, what do I mean by that? And then I sort of started to meet the community, and I thought, holy moly, this is community. This is passion. This is identity. Yeah. And I would drive back down the A1, sort of almost in a sense of shock, thinking, oh God, what just happened to me then? I mean, and as I was slowly leaving it, I kind of felt my life returning. And then when I got home, I thought it felt kind of empty. And it's like, oh, I quite like it. It's actually people, you know, getting together and actually arguing and having, you know, passions are strong, and it's not about art or about this, and you're not going to my little dinner parties and having arguments about that. We're actually in a pub in Stainsforth, and there are people who are fighting to get to me with their pens and papers, saying, this is what I want, and this is what we talk about, and this is this, and this is that.
And you better
there's a guy called Johnny Solo recording a song with mine is a banners are written up. There's food banks and there's people bringing food in, and I think,
oh, I love those guys at Stainsforth. Yeah, they're like my mates.
Extraordinary.
I love them. They're amazing. Like, they're also like spearheading the miners' pension scandal.
Yeah.
Like, my mate Les, who lives next door to the. I bet you went to is it Stainsforth Central Club?
Yeah.
I love it in
there. Yeah, I love it.
I love it. The guy that runs it, he was like, because we did a project and we did working with Gary Lyons, who's doing the last scene, the play. I worked with Gary doing some research last year. So I introduced him to everyone up in Stainsforth, and I met the owner of the Stainsforth Club, and he was like, yeah, I know it's a shithole, Rachel, but it's our shithole. Well,
I didn't think it was a shithole. I thought it was
and I
brilliant.
was like, it's amazing. It's amazing. I love it. It's proper community, though. You said, I spend a lot of time in working men's clubs. Like, I think they're really authentic spaces, and we're losing authentic spaces. You go to cities now, and they're like these homogenised places. And Doncaster is on the cusp of becoming that, and hopefully we're going to fight against it a little bit and try and keep some of this authentic culture that we've got.
Yeah, I mean, it was a Sunday, and I mean, there were families out there all together, so it was like it was a communal living room, and there were kids running up and down and around through the pub through the back, and there was Johnny recording "Don't Let Us Die" and all sort of stuff, and then they were eating roast dinner on the other side of this, you know. And I was walking in and out and thinking, how the hell, what am I doing and what is going on? And it was awesome. And I thought, you know, down south, whatever, you slap a preservation order on something like this, you know, it's something that's so important. It's kind of, as you say, probably something that's not under threat, but, you know, probably losing its resonance, and it's one of the last kind of vestiges of
community. It really is.
Yeah.
It really is.
So in a sense, it's like a living, horrible word to say, not a living museum, but it's a social organ that's under threat and is in so much kind of it's so important.
Yeah, I feel like there's a turn at the moment though, because I keep noticing in like popular culture, people are getting really interested in the north. Like, they're getting really, like, it's kind of becoming a bit cool to be northern.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I had a meeting in a pub just a couple of years ago now with a girl who was from London. She works for a music magazine, quite a high-profile music magazine, and she'd left it to start a magazine in Sheffield. She said, oh no, all the bands are coming out of Doncaster and Sheffield. They're not in London now. Like,
really?
Yeah, so, but obviously I know that won't be the case for, I know there's amazing art and culture in London, I can't deny that, like, I'm not trying to say there isn't, but I think there's something, people are finding something that's different here, and people can't afford to live there and move there, so they are staying here.
And it's not that far away.
And it literally is not.
No, and you know, if you need to be in touch with it.
Yeah, you can just easily get in touch.
And I mean, it seems to me when you're talking to the people in the offices up in the big bods up in the kind of idea of infrastructure and the idea of connectivity is high on the agenda, and it's something that people are really. Yeah. And you know, they want to come. People who want to come will want to be a part of that club. They'll want to be. Okay, oh God, look, you know, because when I come from, you know, tourism is taken over. You know, all the cottages are going for holiday homes, and you know, every other house is rented out. And it's got horrible little logos of cottage renting holidays, you know, and you go and it's all this sort of stuff. So you go, oh, so and so should live there. Oh, might go and see them. And you think, actually, no, it's empty. What's going on? No, there's a little generic kind of sea on a stick in the window. You think that's not an ornament of any personal kind of, you know, that's just, you know, and people who come for these are looking for that old 16th century pub which hasn't got the bar, but which is like we used to go to when we were kids because it was full of life and all the old boys were there with their spaniels and the pheasants were hanging on the wall and all this sort of stuff. And if that's what they want, the authentic, as it were, the authentic is very much in evidence here.
Yeah, it is. I'm glad you said that because I've been thinking so much about how authentic this place is. And I was in Nottingham with my friends and they all look at my life in Doncaster and they're like, it's really real. Your life is really real. Like you live on the front line of it all. It's like, it is on the, I feel like as an artist, that's why it's so interesting being here, because it is like you're on the front line of life. Yeah. It's going from miners' pension scandal to, you know, the spice epidemic to the poverty to the, it's on the cusp of change. It's exciting. It's exciting to be around that energy. I love it, and I wouldn't be able to have this life anywhere else in the world. So I'm like really happy to be here.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I wouldn't have said that when I was younger, and I meet a lot of young creatives who are like, you know, they've gone off and they're in Manchester or whatever, and they're like, oh, I couldn't come back to Donny because, you know, there's no ear for me.
But just tell them it's authentic. Yeah, you know, that word seems to be a real, it's kind of in the media at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sort of, we're living an authentic experience here, you really must get back.
Yeah, I think as well, like when you go to stuff, you might not get a chance, but going to like Durham Miners Gala gives you a sense, because then you've got all your Stainforth lots from all over the country, and it's massive. I went like when I was doing my research on my own, and I was like, I couldn't believe it. I was totally overwhelmed by like the culture, my culture on display, and I felt like an outsider to it, because obviously things like marching under banners, that doesn't happen here. No. Well, it happens more. You've got your Stainforth guys and stuff like that do it, but I mean, I had my first sort of like existential experience, like looking at it all when I went to the working men's club that my granddad's went to when I was 17, and I saw the banners in glass cases, and I was like, what? Like, they used to march through streets holding them. That is the weirdest thing I've ever thought about. And it said on it, considering, you know, Brexit and all stuff like that, this banner that my granddad marched under said, workers of the world unite. And I just think that's an amazing notion, really. But the banners are in these glass cases, and they're not allowed to be took out of the glass cases, which is a shame. Because marching under a banner is an amazing experience. And me and my mum actually went to, obviously the stuff came, there was a film Pride, I don't know if you've watched that yet. Yeah. So the London Pride, the year the film came out, invited all the mining communities to be part of their parade in London. So I went down with the Stainforth Les, and I don't know if you met Les, he's a mixed mate, but went down with Les and Dave Douglas, and I took my mum, because she took me as a baby on a rally to London, so I thought it'd be a way for us to, like, don't know, relive that memory, or as me as an adult. And it was just absolutely incredible, because all the Londoners were just like clapping, and I've never felt so proud in my life walking on this banner, and all the Londoners were just like clapping and cheering and shouting, and then you get the occasional person from Doncaster in the audience like going, Johnny! I felt so much love. I've never felt that much love in my life. I thought, this is what celebrities must feel like, because there were thousands and thousands of people just clapping for us, because we were like bumbling along with
sorry, what was the event? I missed that.
London Pride.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And that wasn't part of the film?
No, it was London. You know London Pride. You know Pride Festival.
Oh, right. Oh, gotcha. Sorry.
Sorry, it's like a massive. Yeah. Pride is like a massive. Millions of people must go to it. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't.
No, I thought you were talking about film promotion.
Yeah, no, the film Pride. They invited, because of that film, they invited us to London.
Maybe I'm half thinking about something else. So the thesis, what was it, part of your art degree, or was it something completely...
Yeah, it was my degree.
Gosh.
I smashed it as well. I got first, and I never thought, I was always like bumbling along all the way through it. Like, I think I failed my first year at uni because I was having too much fun going out. And then my second year, that's when I was like, right, I need to do something about this miners' strike stuff. And then I took a gap year actually, and I spent a year researching everything, and really, and then creating some work around it. I did a light installation actually. I did a memorial light installation. So I got like all these LED lights, and I put them on top of like the slag heap. I wanted it to look like this beautiful twinkling, this beautiful subtle experience, and it just looked like a UFO had landed on top of it. But it was a good experience, and it's really nice to work with light as a medium. Like what the most successful part. That's actually had to get a lot of money, like raise a lot of money to make that happen with the LEDs, because I had to get a lot of them, and it just looked like a UFO had landed. But I did another installation on the river, over the river, connecting the community to the pit. There was the miners' bridge. So I managed to persuade the council to let me on this bridge, and I put like 20 lights on there because it was like the 20th anniversary or something since the pit had shut. And then I hired this like bow, and we did this exhibition with local artists who'd explored like mining, so like curated this exhibition, and got like local dignitaries down and stuff like that. And we all like went to view these lights, and it was amazing because there was like mist as we went under this miner's footbridge, and everyone just looked at these like really, they were just cheap lights that I bought that I'd strung on the bridge, and they were just like, everyone just like gasped when they saw it, and it just looked so amazing. And I really loved that, just working with place, and you know what I mean, like the poetics of it. And it was interesting actually, because when we'd done that riverboat trip and we got off, and he says, do you know what you've created on this boat trip? He says, that's what it used to feel like, that's what our community used to feel like. And I thought, bloody hell, that's what I've been looking to create. Really, I wanted to create whatever it was that went when I was born. I want to create that sort of spirit of people working together. And Doncaster is all about that, like fundamentally. It is about, it's just that, it's a manifestation of it. And Warren, who we worked together on Doncaster, we founded it together, he grew up as a teenager on picket lines, so it's influenced him as an activist, and he was part of like class war and other, Reclaim the Streets in the 90s, and he's an activist and an artist as well, so we've got a lot of synergy. So it's been amazing being back in Doncaster working with Warren, because we come from such a similar space for making work.
I'm having to nail you at the moment, I'm afraid. I'm having to really concentrate.
You have subtle features.
I wish you could have done my nan. I felt like when I was doing it.
Is she around still?
No, she lived to be 104 though.
No, right, what's your bag? I'm going to push under there.
Yeah, it's my little Margaret Thatcher bag.
104?
Yeah, and she was born the year the Titanic sank, and she died last year. So having her in my life has been such an inspiration. I mean, she remembers coming into Doncaster on horse and cart, and she remembers, like, you know, Dennerby getting bombed, and she lived in like real poverty growing up, because my granddad was like a really hard, it's probably like a stereotypical
so your granddad
miner.
was a miner, sorry.
Yeah.
Your grandmother.
She wouldn't have worked at the pit, no, because women didn't work at pit in the 10th century. They brought out legislation to stop women and children working in pits when they realised how many of them died doing it. So in Victorian England.
So it's 104. So she was obviously a very healthy woman.
She was amazing, yeah. Yeah, she didn't live like a healthy lifestyle in a way, because she just ate like sausage and chips and stuff like that. So when I did my PGC a few years ago, we graduated from here actually, and I brought my nan, and we had some dinner in the waterfront restaurant, like my nan just wanted sausage and chips, so they made my nan like this special sausage and chips. she loved it. She was well happy, but yeah, she just my nan like because she lived through the war in a mining area, was already really poor anyway. She'd get out a piece of bacon out of the fridge, and this is like when I was a kid, and like show it you like it were a piece of gold. Like, look at this bacon, isn't it beautiful? So she just always taught me to appreciate everything. Yeah, small things. But she was really happy. Like, she was a really happy person. She was always cracking jokes. She didn't have much, but she loved what she had, and that was her family and her community. And
where she is Conisbrough?
no, that's in Denby, Maine, actually. So my mum's from Denby, Maine, and my nan was there. My family live there now, actually.
That's another cool club.
The Denby Law, yeah.
There's some good banners in there.
Oh, they're the ones that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah,
that's the one that says Workers of the World Unite. My granddad would have marched under that banner. Yeah, my dad's in the banner.
There's incredible paintings as you go in.
Oh, the kids painted that during the strike. I wrote about all that in my dissertation, actually, Yeah, so that was painted by the kids at the school that I went to, but as teenagers when the strike was on. So that was them obviously creating some artwork about it, responding to it all.
That was again a wonderful flood. I suppose thriving.
Yeah.
Thriving.
It is, yeah. It really is. There's actually
very southern.
There's a really interesting not tapestry, but it's in like an embroidery that the women made. That would have been the year after my nan was born, actually, in 1912. And it was the women had sewn like all the names of all the men that would have died at the pit. But that's where, you know, for me, like, I get an understanding of the collective spirit, because that's when you see some of the photographs actually of hundreds of people all collectively mourning around the entrance of the site, waiting for the loved ones to come out, not knowing if they'd be dead or alive. And that, even my mum's generation, with my dad working down the pit, if that siren went off, the whole community would know.
This is one of those themes that's picking up, actually. So
Yeah.
this idea of the siren and fear and trauma that was. And even when I think Nikki was talking about yesterday, the idea, even when it was tested, to test to make sure it worked, the kind of terror it struck.
Yeah. It's been horrendous. Can't imagine it. I mean, my mum was talking. I mean, it's how like tough my granddad was. She said he had a major accident down the pit in like the 50s or the 60s. It might have been the 60s, and a piece of coal the size of a car like landed on him and crushed him, and he still went back to work after it. I don't know what injuries that he actually had, but when he was on his deathbed, this would have been in the 70s. The doctor examined him and said, do you realise that your father's lungs have been punctured from that accident? And he's still, you know what I mean? So like tough, so heavy. So a bit intense, but yeah, I mean,
so that was obviously a really bad pit accident, basically.
Yeah, my dad had an accident where his arm, he's got a massive scar on his arm, where his arm would, a piece of coal just dropped. And you just think, God, if it had gone the other way, or. And one of my dad's mates had to carry someone out who died, and that affected. Obviously, you talk about how that affected people psychologically for the rest of their lives, you know.
But Joan was talking about actually dealing with mine as like a post-traumatic syndrome.
Stress, really. Because you know, they've got this band's got this reputation of like drinking and gambling, but that was like probably their self-medicating from their lives, really. Yeah, I once worked in this gallery in London, and I submitted some of my artwork that was like, it was about mining and sort of anti-Thatcher. And the gallery director came and stood next to my work when I was there and was like, look at this, best thing Margaret Thatcher did was get rid of them fucking awful miners. And I just like nearly burst into tears on the spot. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, what do I say? This is actually my boss. Like, I work for this gallery. And my friend, she who went to school with, went to uni with at school, she just like properly just like argued with him for like an hour to just try and put my foot. But do you know what happened? I actually sold my piece.
Really?
Someone bought it. Yeah.
Wow.
Someone bought my artwork. Gavin, actually. I might send him a link to this.
Yeah.
Because he messaged me recently online saying we've still got your. The piece is called Maggie Thatcher Wicked Witch. Because when we were kids, we used to sing in the playground. We used to call it like Wicked Witch.
Didn't the single go to #1 then? It went to #1, didn't Wales song.
Oh yeah. So every time she came on TV, my mum and dad would be like, "Look, it's the Wicked Witch, it's the Wicked Witch." And then we'd go and like me and my cousin would be on holidays and stuff, and we'd be like dragging this seaweed along the beach and calling it Maggie Thatcher and like beating it with sticks and stuff. And then in the playground we used to sing songs like about like here's Maggie Thatcher, throw up and scat. What is it? Here's Maggie Thatcher, throw up and catch a squish, squash, squish, squash, dead Maggie Thatcher.
Really?
Yeah, so we used to sing stuff in the playground. We used to do strikes in the playground as well, like pretend to do strikes. Yeah, and at secondary school we used to actually go on strike against the teacher. Which we didn't, but I didn't actually know at that time what it meant. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We just knew it was something that you did. So we'd be like, right, we're all going on strike. Everybody strike.
Yeah.
And then you'd be like, off out. Teacher would be like, herding you
Well,
out,
yeah,
herding you in. Yeah.
Really?
Oh, so rebellious. When I look back, it was like a zoo, like my school experience, which frustrated me because I didn't want to learn. But then I actually just used to teach myself, so I became quite an independent, like, learner, I guess,
Really?
because. Yeah, even in top sets, she couldn't learn out because everyone were kicking off. Yeah, it was just a weird time. We were that first generation. I remember actually someone coming in and asking us doing some research on us and asking us what class we thought we were. And I remember we were all like, well, we're not working. We just didn't know. But we weren't indoctrinated into them views because by 10 years after the strike. It just didn't. That world didn't exist. That world didn't exist anymore. Pit didn't exist. There weren't the jobs. No one were leaving school. My generation thinking, "Oh, I'm going to work at Pit." Whereas my sister's generation, which was like 10 years before, there were still guys going, "Oh well, I'm going to school, but I'm going to work at Pit like my dad," and that just went.
So looking back at your childhood and this school time, did you feel? I mean, looking back now, you understand you were suffering from kind of aftermath of a really traumatic time. But obviously, at the time, you weren't aware. You were just going through life, thinking this is, I suppose, this is it, and this kind of sense of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Did you stumble across it, or what was the moment? What was the epiphany?
There was a few key epiphanies. One was studying art here at the college and doing that project on identity and background and delving into what it meant. But I think I'd started a little bit earlier than that as well. I think I'd started actually I designed a magazine, which is ironic, in my A-level media, and I called it Liberty Magazine. And I think I did a lot on punk in this magazine, but then I did a story on like drugs in mining communities, the drug,
really?
drugs, yeah.
Because obviously, it's amazing how this all comes back.
Oh God, yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's so weird. But in this magazine that I created, I wanted to understand, because obviously, drugs had really affected my upbringing. Like I think I was offered drugs like really, really young, and I'd seen guys like smoking heroin around the back of the school and stuff, and I'd seen heroin affect the lives of people around me, because I'd love to research this, but it's like, how weird is it that all of a sudden all this cheap heroin comes into these areas as soon as the mine shut? It's just like, it's a controversial subject matter, but some people have written that it was to sedate people and that it was, like I know that. You don't know.
Conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it's conspiracy theory. It could be conspiracy theory. I don't know, but it's very interesting anyway to look at it.
I'm not saying it is, but
yeah,
it's a powerful.
It's not something that's been written about or documented, but I think it really should be researched more. But yeah, so I was really worried. I was really concerned about that, and I wanted to write this piece on it. So I started researching, and I looked in the Guardian, and it talked about. I remember the line in this article. It said, like, the ex-mining apathy, and I didn't know what apathy meant. And I remember I looked it up in the dictionary, and I was like, right, so that's what it is. That's what my generation is. That's what this feeling is.
Really? So it's like a dictionary moment.
Yeah, it was a dictionary. The dictionary, like, thank goodness. But like the whole, like, apathy, the apathetic mining town, like, it wasn't apathetic, but now it is, kind of thing. So so that was there. And I think someone's dad like asked me to draw a picture of the pit as well, and I was like, this is weird that like people want pictures of the job that they did.
Did your house discuss? I mean, did your dad discuss it? I mean, was it
yeah,
something
they
that
talked about it, yeah.
you know? Obviously, the strike thing. The strike was over. You were a baby. You were born in the strike, so your family, your dad was on the picket line.
Do you know what? My dad didn't go on picket lines because my mum was pregnant, and he didn't go on picket lines. But yeah, but he was always like, oh God, no,
so there was no money coming in.
No. They had a lot of support from other people though, so I think it was a very happy time for them during the strike because they didn't have to work.
Yeah.
But it was obviously it was a struggle, but yeah. I feel bad now. I'm like, is my dad going to watch this? He's mad at me for saying that. But but they had a lot of love and support from people. So my mum says she remembers like people putting £10 notes through letterbox anonymously, and like my sisters all went to dance school in Doncaster to Nelly Stagles, and they brought like a hamper, and in it they had a little bauble with my name engraved on it, which I've still got. And it's for me, a present for me during the strike from the dance school, which is just so lovely to think people did that.
You know, even now when someone like some distant remembers it, leaves a bottle of wine on the doorstep because I remember it's just been a life forever.
Yeah.
And you get really touched by it. It's like, that's made my week, that's made my month. To have those kind of gestures punctuating a period like that, it must really reinforce.
Yeah.
They become really magnified, don't they?
Yeah, it is lovely. That's really moving me. Actually, it's giving me a little goosebumps because I think that's just the way people are around here. Like, if they overgrow veg at the allotment, they leave it on doorstep for you. In them communities, it's not really like that where like my life in Doncaster, because neighbours don't know each other and it's much more transient. But it's interesting really, like that random acts of kindness. I think people are very kind in Doncaster. That's why we have so many food banks and we have so many soup kitchens and we have so many people like who want to help others because they don't maybe often have much themselves. So it's like, well, what can I just want to give back. Like, I'm doing all right now. I can give back to those less fortunate than me. I do think that defines Doncaster. It is a really caring town. Really scratch surface.
Definitely sensed it. Definitely.
People give
and
a
I
shit.
sense it's almost like your dialogue today has been about, can I start off saying it's been really tough here. It's really, people have got to read down on it, and then usually a conversation in a pub will start like that, and then really halfway through, a bit like today, people start going, well, actually, people are passionate, people care, people are generous, people love each other, people. It's all still here, and you begin to mine kind of a social kind of group, and then before you know it, people are really kind of leaving and ranting how wonderful it all is. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, I'm generally really happy here. I think it's great. Great. I feel like I've got a great life.
But it's amazing. You basically fashioned a place for yourself. I mean, it wasn't there before.
No.
I mean, you've created a role. You are one of these cultural kind of entrepreneurs, they call them, don't they?
You have to be in a way because my generation, like when I finished uni, like I would have got a graduate job, but I got that job at the gallery, and I was like, wow, I've got a job at a gallery. Things like this don't happen to people like me from Donny. I felt like I'd made it at working in this gallery, and I had such an amazing time doing that. And that's definitely, doing that job and meeting all the artists that I met has definitely been really useful for what I'm doing now. Like. It was amazing, and I just thought it never happened to me. But then when the recession came, I couldn't get any job. I couldn't get nothing. I'd done that campaign, I worked in that gallery, I got first, I got teaching PGC, I couldn't get any job, couldn't get nothing. So I ended up working as a cleaner in a local, working behind a bar and doing like cleaning jobs and stuff like that, and just trying to get by really, and try and carve something where I was basically using my talent in a useful, meaningful way, because that's all that people, you want to be able to do that. You don't, in life, you want to be able to do something that you believe in and that's meaningful. So so I ended up doing that for ages, and that was really hard.
How did you set it up then? What did you do? Did you the magazine? How does it fund?
Advertising, predominantly advertising. So we've got a lot of brilliant partners that work with us and support us. I survive on what I make for my job at the hospice, so that pays my rent and bills and stuff. And then I get other freelance commissions and projects as well.
So it really is, I mean, basically non-profit making.
Yeah, basically.
And I suppose you never actually entered it to make money anyway. It's not something.
It's not really no. I'm more care about doing things like making that story with Earl about Spice happen. You know, that's more important to me, really. I mean, we did an issue which was themed recovery. So we're looking at Doncaster's recovery, economic recovery, and stuff like that. And I featured in that a story, a poem that was sent to us from prison, from a local guy called Dale Ashurst, and he'd wrote to us in the magazine, and that was just and then I published one of his letters that he sent us from prison in a poem, and doing stuff like that.
God. It's
just priceless.
Yeah. Is that Doncaster prison?
No, he's actually at Horne now, but he's from Doncaster. Well, that's a good one, because we're looking at, I describe Doncaster as a place that's been through an earthquake, and what we're doing now is, it's not an earthquake that you can actually physically see, but it is something, deindustrialisation in this area, it's totally affected people's lives. And when I see the lads that are out of work and drinking or substance misusers, I think they are a direct product of the fact that just down the road there would have been 10,000 people employed, and now there's probably like 1,000, you know.
Well, it's the whole building of this magazine as well. I can't even imagine actually. I mean, you wrote your thesis, etc., etc. Did all that, and you completely connected with your subject. It's almost like it's an ongoing kind of thesis, kind of. It's almost like a continuation of that kind of research and study. You're actually now almost going to source, and actually your research has turned into a publication.
Yeah, it has. Yeah.
And really, you're just carrying on that whole kind of idea of research, but
if I'd never done any of this,
I
would never. Doncaster, people don't like. It's because of doing all this. It's because of all of the minor stuff and wanting to make people feel proud again. I'm doing Doncaster. So.
But and yet you're still, you know, you're taking on Horny issues. You're not selling pictures of flower beds and roundabouts and saying you should be really proud of yourself. It's actually saying, you know, there's tough stuff going on here.
Yeah, that was a particularly heavy issue, the one that you read actually.
Well, I have to say it was great.
I'm glad, because, do you know, we published it, right? I felt really bad because I felt like, actually, I'm not sure if people need this right now, because November's quite a dark time of year anyway, and it's Christmas has come in and people haven't got much money and it's all that pressure and stuff, and I felt a bit, that magazine was particularly dark, but the recovery issue one was dark as well. But we try and balance it. So the Christmas one is like really lovely. It's got penguins on the front. So it's like we kind of made it more uplifting because I felt like, whoa, I don't know if people need to have these issues really. They looked forward to reading Doncapolitan for being, you know, maybe a bit more uplifted, I think. So it worried me. Although my team at Doncapolitan, they were like, no, everything's right, it's fine. I just freaked out about it a bit.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel a responsibility now? I mean, do you feel like you've, in a sense, by saying I want to create a positive role, as it were, for the community and stuff, and then you take on something and say, am I actually doing what I said I was going to do? Have you created a rod for your own back, in the sense of creating a mission statement for a magazine, which, and sometimes you think, actually, do you know, I want to actually say maybe quite honestly and quite abrasive and quite hard-hitting.
We've always set out to do that. We always said that we wanted to explore like anything that you know, anything art, culture, fashion related, or anything in Doncaster, anything we could find in Doncaster that's creative. But then obviously explore its coal black underbelly as well. So we've always set out to do that. But you do. I mean, one of the images was by Shane Pegram, a local photographer, which is the one of the boy and the Facebook balloon. Did you see that image? Yeah. And the thing for me was that I saw people open that image and were like, oh, Doncapolitan, you know, some of the like staff at the hospice and things, and they were a bit like, ooh, shut it. And I was like, oh no, there's going to be hundreds of people doing that.
Wow.
Pick it up, I'm not sure. But then lots of people said, well, it's the truth, and we need to put that, you know, that message out that about social media and young people and things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard, but it's just a creative process. You're on a journey, aren't you? You're just on a journey.
And also now you're actually participating in almost steering debate really in your town.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredible voice piece. I mean, you're an editor, aren't you?
Yeah, it's weird. I never thought
Yeah.
I'd end up doing it. But then I did create a magazine when I was
Yeah.
16, so thinking about it.
Amazing. Incredible.
But it is, I don't know, I just,
How many issues have you done?
28.
Really? It's been going
Oh
on
no,
time.
we're working on 28 now, so.
28, so that's 6 a year, so that's 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, we did 8 in the first couple of years, but because we've got the farm and the other projects now, we just thought we'd stick to 6. Because like one year we actually did one for Mexborough, so we did like 9 in a year, and it's just an immense amount of work. Can I put you on Snapchat?
Put me on Snap, what with something in my mouth?
Yeah.
Go on then. What's the time, guys?
Nearly after 11.
What does that mean? Half an hour to go. You've got a very difficult face. The problem is you're too interesting, and I'm not concentrating. Look at me. I'm having a bloody photograph taken now with you on my lap.
I'm
Look.
videoing you. This is my head.
Well, kind of. I wouldn't be too worried about it. Very interesting, though. It's been good fun. I'll try and get some sort of head shape, some sort of hair shape. See, where do I stop?
Weird hair,
Look, why don't you have a, it should have been a little, 6 inches off that, and I'd have been all right.
Just do it a bob.
Just stop.
Yeah, just
do you have
a bob.
bobs?
Yeah, just
All
do
right.
it as a short bob.
Okay. Which would be quite nice from a sculptural point of view. I'm having a rest from your features.
Do you want to
Problem is-
concentrate for a bit?
No.
Natter?
See, because you're too animated, that's the problem. You keep looking all over the shop.
You're
I mean,
right.
when I
That's
do...
what I'm thinking. I'm trying to think. That's
Yeah,
what I was
no.
worried about, because I've not talked about this stuff for ages,
Really?
and I'm like...
If I was any good, I'd have had you at that angle doing all that. That was when, if I had a month, you'd have ended up in that kind of thoughtful, gathering your thoughts, sort of thinking about, big things. But we've just got you looking straight at me. You might be some sort of Aphrodite in the end, we'll see. You never know. The Aphrodite of Donny.
Someone called me the mother to... Early wrote that piece, came into Doncaster the other day, and Rachel's Mother Teresa of Doncaster. I'm like, shut up. Shut up. Is that the weirdest thing I've ever heard?
It's been an extraordinary experience, this, I have to say. I mean, I went to bed last night, and it was just going through all the images in my head. Bloody hell. I mean, 3 heads a day, it's just bonkers. I mean, there's going to be 12 portraits in the end.
It's amazing, though,
Oh,
to
thank
do
you.
that. Amazing.
We've got miners coming in. It would be great if you could advertise it in your next door.
Oh yeah, we could do a feature. I thought we're doing next issue is All Nations, and that's about diversity, cultural diversity, because it's the March is the anniversary of when we called the Article 50, and 2019 will be March 2019 will be when we officially pull out of Europe. So we're doing like a issue that's exploring diversity and immigration, stuff like that, Doncaster. And then then we're doing, like, we still issue Doncaster, so we're doing food stuff. But then in the summer we're doing art in action.
Oh, right.
So I thought that might be a good one
Yeah.
to do a big piece on the commission.
Because what we're doing is we're just trying to get as many miners or people like, people related to miners in here and photographed. So we've already got portraits coming in. We basically set them up. We've got the full faces. We're looking for our hands without fingers. We're going to have portraits of fingerless miners' hands, which is going to be a thing that fading away.
I know, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I knew an ex-miner that had lost his finger, so when I heard about it, I thought you'd have loved that.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And we just need as many here as possible, because, I mean, a couple of... Been doing, all about this, doing PR and trying to get the word out. It's just, it's just so ridiculously difficult. And you get people here who come to the talks and go...
I think a lot of people know about this
Yeah.
project, because the amount of people that tagged me
You are. You what?
Everyone's like, this is for you, this is for you. I was like, I know. Joe's already booked me.
Oh, really? Oh, good news.
Because loads of people were sharing it online.
That's
like
good news,
loads,
because
yeah.
you basically get this scenario where they come up, they go, well, we never heard about it, there's no one talking about this, and it's like not getting out there. And you think, well, actually, Christ almighty, what do you have to do? So, a bit of PR to get these faces to record this cross-sections of communities and stuff would be amazing. And they are, and then we're going to hopefully get publication on the go or whatever and make it work somehow, because in many ways it's more important than the whatever's going to happen in the end. The process of getting there feeds it.
Do you feel like your creative process then that you're kind of going to have to be here, ingraining yourself in people's lives and the culture, and then like kind of just spend some time developing?
Problem is, every time I talk to someone, they say you should do this.
Yeah.
And you should do this, and you should do this, and this should be in there, and it's about this, and it's about that, and it's about that.
You can't please everybody. You have to just do what you want at the end of the day.
And it's a mindset that you've got to move through, because you come here thinking, no, I can please everybody. I can do it. Oh well, I'll find that incredible image that will work out, and it's going to have to be a static object. It's going to have
You've got parameters.
place. Yeah. So it's got to be something that's got to sum up so much.
It's hard.
And then you have a great idea. Middle of the night, you wake up and you kind of that's brilliant. Put a little sketch, and you go back to sleep again. Think, that's just the answer. That is just brilliant. And then you go online just to make sure it hasn't been done before. Lo and behold, some deep dark place in the American mining belt, there's a bloke with a similar solution. So you're having to familiarise yourself with the whole.
Is there like a real time thing on it as well?
Well, no, luckily the council are brilliant. I've sort of said, go, they're happy to go with this process.
Yeah.
And I said, well, once we've decided what to do, it'll probably take about a year to make it. So we're just going with the idea of it's like eating a whale. It's one at a time, one bite, one bite at a time. So at the moment, I'm just purely concerned with this. And this is my focus. And it's brilliant. And I'm learning so much.
Yeah. It's overwhelming, really.
It is.
It's so overwhelming.
And a sense of responsibility is heightened every time you meet a really nice person.
Yeah.
Because I can't wait to see what you've done it. You begin to develop an idea of your audience and think, actually, the audience, you start thinking, oh, the next generation don't know anything about this, my kids and my grandchildren, like you were saying, have no idea where they come from, and think, well, actually, then my audience is a kind of a granddad that is taking a young child to a place and saying, do you know what that is? So it could be a very illustrational thing that's basically saying, a lexicon of incredible oral, a glossary almost. There needs to be a part of it as well. It needs to have language in it. It needs to have something that someone goes, do you know what that word means? Do you know what a snap tin is, whatever? And the kid will go, I'll tell you what it was. And then you need that kind of spark, that moment of beginning investigations. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got to get all that in. Now, how do I do that imaginatively? Title. I suppose every one of them should have some title attached to it. The Activist.
I've always loved punk, and Vivienne Westwood was a big inspiration for me. And I saw her speak, I think it was a TED Talk, and they introduced her as a fashion designer. She got up and she went, no, actually, I'm an activist. And I nearly burst into tears. I was like, yes. Just make more people feel like they want to be an activist. And although I love fashion and I love what Vivienne Westwood does, it's we live in a time where there's so much shit going off. Like, we need to stand up and make a difference. And that's why I'm like, those guys did that. Les, Mick, you know, those ex-miners, they stood up and they fought, and yeah, just, they make me so proud, they make me want it. But I also kind of like, I'm an activist in a different way to them. It's like doing politics with a, like, not a capital P but a small p, like that kind of debate where it's being political, like at a really grassroots level, but that it's starting a veg box scheme, or it's, you know, a magazine, or putting on an event that talks about slow movement, and or putting on a clothes swap where you're kind of doing an anti-buying clothes thing or whatever. So
fantastic.
I don't know. I'm just trying.
What I love is the fact that you've actually created a reason for being it. It's like, it actually, you know, it's a bit like doing this. Like, why would I do a head? It's like I need to create a reason.
Yeah.
We've got it. You've actually got a reason to get up and be an activist. You have a role to fulfil, which you've created for yourself. Which is an incredible achievement.
Art does that, doesn't it, really? Yeah. It kind of really... Cause I think if I'd not done art, then I wouldn't... Yeah, it's like a self-discovery voyage, isn't it? Art.
Yeah, it's amazing when people sort of diss art education.
Oh, God.
You often hear that people...
terrifies me.
When I was teaching, people would say, you realise it costs as much to educate a sculptor as it does a doctor. How awful. Actually, I can understand that, and actually... That's brilliant. More of it.
I had all my patients say to me, actually, the day because they started painting with me. I said, oh, I wish you were my doctor, because the act of painting actually made this person feel better.
Wow.
You know, it's like art is medicine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
If you look at like indigenous tribes and stuff like that, the artists were like the medicine people as well.
You can refuse to have this cast if you don't like it. All right, John.
Amazing.
Very good.
I give you the rights to your image. You are my... I'm worried about each model, obviously. Craggy old men I'm quite happy about. But a 10-year-old boy and you... Oh, God. Because it's... In 2 hours, to get something smooth, it's really... really difficult. Bit of creasy fruit, bit of few crow's feet, you know. I could talk to you all day, a guy, a big scar on his head. He would tell me story after story after story. And we're a little bit quiet, I'm going to ask you about our scar in a minute. I bet there's a story behind that. I says, I'm not talking about that. He goes, the bloke's still alive. Okay. Move out of that. Because you forget what is going on.
I think you've done my nose amazing.
You think so?
Yeah. Yeah.
See
I've drawn my own nose a lot, though.
Of course,
you know what I mean? So, how you've done that with that knife, I'm absolutely amazed.
I know it sounds silly,
You've
but
always
I've
been
never
able
seen my work. I've never seen me work.
Yeah.
We were Gavin and Indian last night, and we put on a couple of these films. Again, do I put that in my mouth? Is that?
Yeah.
How did
Have you always like been really able to see in a 3D? Or have you kind of like trained you? Because I work with like your artists, and sometimes you can see when someone's actually gifted for 3D.
Yeah, I think, you know, I love doing. I used to just love doing perspective.
Yeah.
I just love even now on the telephone. I'm drawing boxes with shadows, boxes with shadows. And if it's a long conversation, it becomes a tire scraper, and it goes on and on. But they're just, it's all about space all the time, carving space all the blooming time. You build so. I'm sure I have must have a spatial interest, must have a spatial kind of awareness that I've always been interested in. And this is just I must be a part of it. And I was really interested to do this because I've never done this before. I've never stood up and done a head I don't have models. I don't use models. My sculptures are manifestations of my life experience. So they are kind of
made up, imaginary. From, you know, I will make one sculpture, oh, that's how you do a foot. Oh, okay, I remember that. Hands, remember. And you go, oh, okay, feet are kind of okay for the next year or two. Feet are kind of dealt with my hands. I can move on. Then I go, how do you do the back, shoulder, you know, whatever? Okay, let's work that out in the next sculpture and you get that right. So you slowly get a kit of information in your body that understands how to do certain things. So I don't use models at all, but I have that kind of memory bank in my body. And so, in a funny sort of way, going straight from the source like this, it's kind of very easy because I haven't got to think what I want to say. This is really quite wonderful because I was saying on the way in, I haven't got to think. I haven't got to sit here and worry about what this means. What it means is, the process that got it here is its meaning. It doesn't really matter what it looks like because having this conversation with you and the reason for being here is what it's about. And so really I'm just coming here, sorry, as a guy that's just got to make a likeness and sort of pursue his craft and think of nothing else. And I've never had that.
I've been that.
Yeah. You know it's like being a fine artist. It's you know, if I had a crit with this, what the hell's going to happen? You know. So I suppose now it'd be very interesting actually, because I wouldn't even call it art. I wouldn't call this art. I'd call it a kind of a reason to be in a place and a reason to have a conversation, a facilitating object. And but you do start caring about very fundamental things. I've got to get it. You know, I've got 10 minutes to go, and it's not looking a little bit like you know. But
I feel like when it turns out, it's going to look like me, but then like my nan, and I don't know why, because I've got similar features to her. So I was like, I think that's how it's going to turn out.
I really need all this emery paper to smooth it all out. I haven't got it. But there's something very refreshing about just doing what you're kind of good at and having to worry about it. And I've really enjoyed the fact that I just haven't got to worry. I haven't got to be like intelligent. I haven't got to be. I haven't got to defend it. And I'm learning about that actually. Now I'm thinking about it. You nearly through it. You nearly survived.
Didn't cry.
You didn't cry.
It's like, it brings up a lot of memories.
Were you thinking about that?
I was getting a bit emotional this morning. Yeah, because it brings back a lot of like memories and stuff. Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting because obviously memories are stuff that you've more or less researched rather than experienced it firsthand, I suppose.
I know, I've talked about that more than like family stuff really. So. Or like personal stuff, I guess.
I love this fringe. When I came through the door, I thought, I've gone for that. You're going to be all right at the end of it. Whatever happens, if you get the fringe in, they go, God, it looks like, just like it. Well done, you. It was brilliant. Fantastic. You got it. You got it. All, the last minute, it all came together. It's great as well for the college. The college is involved. And there's wonderful students here. Brilliant. This whole camera business is extraordinary. Totally, totally connected to it. It's interesting. The last city today is going to be Keith and Lynn. Lynn was a policewoman. Keith
as a minor.
Oh my God.
During the strike, they were married.
Incredible.
And they were apparently even, there was tears even in the portrait photographs they shot. So it's very interesting because you get to the point where even with Joan, you want to hear the interesting gory bits. You don't want to talk about them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got people go, how are you injured or whatever? How's that? I'm not going to talk about that. So, oh, okay. And obviously you have to respect it.
Mm.
You think, God, that's what I want to hear about.
People have such fascinating lives, don't they? I think that's what I learned, like, doing my job. Like, everybody's got the most interesting lives, like, everybody.
Yeah. It's interesting you were imagining you might be emotional.
Mm. Yeah, because I don't know, it's just been such a big part of my life. And yeah, it was really hard for my family. So.
And it sounds like they did kind of solid bit of bloody wax over the Sorry. Cut. The problem is it doesn't go down. So it becomes a nodule in the larynx. It sticks, as you can hear it. And I collapse on the floor. It's like ends up being a YouTube hit.
I did this interview with Le Monde, you know, the French paper Le Monde.
Oh, yeah.
Right, they came to Doncaster and they wanted to do a story on like the post-industrial Doncaster.
Yeah.
And so I met this photographer and he was amazing. And I took him to different places in Doncaster and we did this photography. And then I took him to my nan's house and he did like a photo shoot at my nan's house. And I told the journalist like loads of stuff about like my family life and personal stories from growing up and everything. And then when the newspaper was published, it had like this beautiful picture of me and my nan like on the sofa like this, and then the headline was "There's something broke in Doncaster."
Oh no!
And it was like a picture of me and my nan. It was really funny. It is funny, but I don't know. So that's why I get a bit nervous for interviews because you never know.
You never know.
What you're going to say as well. Do you know what comes up, and then you might regret it after.
I had this moment. This last summer. I got this sculpture in the reed beds in a marsh, and it was revealed every day, twice a day by the water. The tide's receding, and this figure comes out of and his light is going to sink so into the mud. And of course, the Coast Guard, the tourists go around and see this figure lying in the mud. It's like a dead body, isn't it? So I'm in France on my holiday, coming back, and we end up caught up in this terrorist incident where they've mown cars into a load of army people. And we're caught up in the car chase in the north of France near the Somme. And all the army soldiers are out and the roads are closed down, and after a while we'd missed our ferry hours ago and we're sitting there angry. And then the car goes by in an articulated lorry with the bullets going up the side of its thing. It's a bit serious here. And the phone rings. And it's the BBC. And I go, how did you know I was here? Put me on to, John Humphrys now, I can deal with this. It's a black Mercedes, and I'm sure the police are handling it. I said, no, what are you talking about? I said, it's you're in the news. I said, what? I said, at this moment there's a helicopter circling over a sculpture in a marsh. Would you know anything about that? And I went, oh, damn, I went, just under my breath I said, damn, I was always worried a damn helicopter would spot it and try and rescue it. And she said, well, actually as well, there's 2 fire engines, 2 police cars and an ambulance is there as well. I thought, oh, Jesus. So you were worried about this happening, were you? And I went,
uh-oh. So I immediately said, I would just like to thank all emergency services and what a wonderful job they do, and this is an awful situation, and I'd like to apologise to people that saw this and are traumatised by this, and I went on, and then they said, well, thank you very much, but not interested. And I got to Calais eventually, and I thought I'd look online, and the front of the BBC headline said, sculptor was worried about helicopter spotting body. His nightmares have come true. And it went viral. It went sort of, there was 2,000 hits on my film within 24 hours. And it was all about my folly. None of the apologies and none of the kind of repair work I was trying to do.
Yeah, nothing that would be really useful for you.
No. It's still there though. I had to fight to keep it. But you know when you're kind of more passionate, I was leaving. You know, the landscape was very important to me, and I was leaving a studio that was set in these incredible marshes. And I'd been there, and they'd been my muse, and they'd fed me and all that sort of stuff. And I was just going to leave something. It was going to drown and die eventually, but it was just going to be left. And I cared a lot about it. I still do. It's still there. I thought, you know, sometimes you just have to stand up for it. And I'm not gonna do it. You know, this is just not gonna happen. And I do it with refuse.
I've got slightly over 10 minutes.
Oh God. Okay, this is not good. She's not gonna be happy with this. This is very nerve-wracking. There is something there now. There's a little bit coming. Such intelligent eyebrow.
It does look like my nan.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a compliment. Isn't that lovely though? It's just a 104-year-old.
She was amazing.
She doesn't look 104. It's not quite. I'll do some work on this one after, because I want to get the hair right at the end and like a nice kind of line that she was sitting. But I haven't got time to do that when I've got more information I need in other places. So Ben, did you come back here much?
Did I come back?
To the college? Do you come back here and
Not really.
did you ever teach you or don't go to talks here about your life after, as it were?
Not really. I worked here a little bit. I had the weirdest role ever.
Weirdest what, sorry?
I had a weird role, and I left. Probably shouldn't say that.
Nice.
Look with life.
I think your story is going to become important. I think very important. It's an incredible one.
You have to come down.
I'd love to, yeah.
Good.
So is there a place?
My house opposite, and I've got I made a wonder camera, you know, like
Oh yeah.
a mini museum,
Really?
and it's got all my mining stuff in it. It's got this huge bit of coal this miner gave to me in it.
Is there a place in the headquarters, as it were?
Yeah.
It's not like done from a kitchen table every...
No, it's a shop.
Is it?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
God.
It's beautiful. See, I could never have this anywhere else. It's just
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can afford the rent, and my house is opposite. I get a house to myself. Never have that
No.
in a city. Shop in a house.
Christ.
No, I don't own
So
it.
what's in the shop?
Well, we just put on a lot of different events there. We work on the magazine. We put on little exhibitions in there of like gigs, bands rehearse there. We do a craft club on a Monday.
How big is it?
It's a big building, but we mainly use the front unit. But then we share other spaces in the building, and it's rented by other businesses upstairs. But they're really cool. They just love what we do, and in an evening we kind of can do what we want. So we've got we just collaborate with. We're creating that space for the artists to come and just develop a little bit, whatever it might be that they need to do. Maybe it's they need to put on some like avant-garde music night, or maybe they're like LGBTQA artists that want to get known or locally or test out some new work. So just try and make that space for people to come and collaborate. But I think because I worked in the gallery and I loved that so much, I kind of just want to create a little bit of that here as well.
Brilliant.
Started doing a podcast actually as well, so we're doing that.
Amazed you've got time to be here.
I know. Got a lot on. I have to sell adverts as well, so that's a bit.
Oh God, that's a bit boring.
Yeah, it's not. It's nice actually because I love meeting all the independent businesses because they're really just nice, passionate people. And usually off back of it, I end up getting commissions for other artists and. People want a mural or they want some artwork, so it's quite good. But it's just a different role.
Part of your, it's amazing. You realise what skills you have. You know, you train, as you say, you train as an artist. And you're suddenly going, oh, actually, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a salesman. I'm a this. I'm a that. And before you know it, you realise that actually you're really quite multi-skilled.
I think I would have always liked to be able to focus on one thing, but I've just had to hustle so much. I've just had to be like, right, if I want to make this happen, I've got to go over there and do that. Right, if I want to make this happen, I've got to do that for a bit. It's just, I've always felt like I've never really been able to like live at 100% creativity. Like in London, I think it was even less because you're just having to work and just not making enough money or to have a studio and have that space.
Do you get down there much?
No, I'm not really. Sometimes I go for work. I've got a work thing going off. I did get invited. You know, the Tate Tank's open.
Yeah.
I got invited I was part of this collective called Tweet Me Up, and I got to screen a film there. So that was amazing. It was a mining one actually, one of my mining ones. Just shared it today actually. Yes, that was pretty much, and that was called Art in Action. So, like a lot of activists and artists that went to the Foundry in East End, this arts venue. So that was good. And I got invited back to do this thing with Innovation Unit, which are like, they sort of work with third sector, local authorities, think tanks, and they help write and develop policy and push it to government for change. So they're really interesting. They really like what we're doing up here. So we wanted to try and get a bit more nationally for what we're doing. That's one of the things we want to try and do this year.
Incredible.
It's 12 o'clock.
Oh, bugger. Oh, well. Again, we'll have to just call it a day, I'm afraid. Could have gone on for another hour. Well done. There you are.
I love it. I do. I look just like my nan, honestly. Let me show you a picture. I think.
All right, no. More time for me. You get lost on there. Give me the top of your head now. It's great.
we've got a
Wow.
really similar nose, haven't we?
God,
I know
she's
mine's small.
bloody hell, yeah.
She's got a roller zone. That was just before she died. That's the way. That's my mum. That's neighbour
Wow.
that just comes round. Little council bungalow. Proper Yorkshire, that, innit? Drinking Yorkshire tea.
Fantastic. Have a look at her face again. We've got the other one, the first one. Jeez, it's amazing.
Her eyes are sunken back more than mine, but...
Well, you wait till you're 104. Fantastic. Jeez. Well, thank you. That was really good.